Hey guys, it's Heather here with Underwater Panther, and I have been feverishly working on the generations, breaking it down, non-astrology and astrology. So it's a really huge project that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I currently have time to do it. So I have gotten through the silent generation, the 1928 through 1945 generation, and breaking it down non-astrologically and astrologically. So it has been an interesting journey so far. The silent generation certainly reminded me of my native grandfather that passed away. It was a little bit emotional, but yeah, I finally finished the baby boomers, 1946 through 1964. I have actually formatted it as a book, which I will do from here on out, which will be available for purchase. Very organized. I know some people prefer to read. Some people want to take in the information in a slower pace at their own time, which is extremely understandable. I am certainly a book collector myself, and I totally understand. And so the next video, hopefully I can record the baby boomer video tonight. I have actually finally updated my Mac computer. I have figured out how to download OBS Studio as well as Obsidian, which is a mind mapping software program. And so now I've been playing with it for hours and hours. I have gotten a TV screen, so now I can do actual presentations. I think it has to be live, but you will be able to see my screen. So it will be, it takes a lot of time to edit videos, and I would prefer, even if I have to go live. Oh well, I've gone live. I kind of bursted my own bubble on that and am not as fearful, anxious, or whatever you want to call it about going live. And so I think I am going to start just depending, especially on my generational videos from the baby boomers on out. I am going to do presentations in a format where you can see what I'm reading from and have visuals while I speak. So that's exciting, super exciting. I'm extremely interested in the generations and what each generation is passing down to do with unhealed polarity work. So I am extremely fascinated with archetypes, obviously personality types, how to integrate the ego. I get into the four sides of the mind, the subconscious, unconscious, superego. I've been breaking down birth charts for many years, hundreds of people. I've been writing massive ego books for the last 8 years, breaking down the ego specifically, astro-psychologically. I am just trying to give language to, bridging many different systems together. So yeah, I don't know anyone else besides one other person doing what I'm doing, and I cannot remember who that person is. They were on YouTube from another country. Unfortunately, I cannot find them. So I am making my own community and speaking on, I'm also integrating indigenous wisdom. This year of 2025, I have been doing a lot of ancestral Native American generational healing work through genealogy, through getting tribal cards, and totally diving in and teaching indigenous wisdom. And I think it's extremely important because they truly had the masculine and feminine integrated within themselves. They were very embodied, very connected to the earth. That has a lot to do with, nervous system work, honestly. And so I am combining all of that together and giving a language to what is going on, what has already gone on generationally. There we go. Generationally. And so this video specifically, I am an absolute expert at seeing patterns. I've been this way my entire life. I am an Aries rising. I am a pioneer. Any system you put me in, I'm going to absolutely break it down and holistically put it back together. And so I cross-reference tons and tons of information. Eastern philosophies, Western philosophies, astrology, psychology, hermeticism. I study it all, different religions, you name it, the human design. I have just been sifting through tons and tons of information, and I'm seeing patterns. I have been on this in the know with the masculine and feminine. It's wounding, honestly. It is a total breakdown and wounding. I've seen it within women a lot within the last 4 years. I'm an Aquarian mind, so I network a heck of a lot, and I like to see what the collective is up to and what is going on. And polarity work is extremely important. Nervous system work, embodiment in the Aquarian age. This is the age of information. And so we need to remember to ground ourselves, but we also need an eagle's eye view of what is going on, giving language to what has already gone on and what is currently going on and what is going on within the future, honestly. And so this video is about the Gen Alpha generation. I have 2 children that are Gen Alphas, and I have a stellium in Capricorn. I have my Native American blood. I was raised Catholic. I'm a farm child, so I just deeply, deeply care about human beings on a soul level, mental level, emotional level, generational level. I'm extremely concerned with future generations, where we are headed collectively. I do care extremely deeply about individuals, but I also stay in tune with the collective. So this video is about Gen Alpha isn't rebellious, they're regulated, the quiet collapse of authority, and the rise of voluntary polarity work. And the Gen Alpha is actually mirroring Millennials. Let me get a drink real quick. So I'm seeing a pattern. I've been in tune with Millennials. What is going on? I have already outlined my millennial generational video. I am feverishly trying to get the ones done prior to researched out, scripted out, videos out. I am working very, very hard. I want to get to the millennials within the next couple of days and get that video out. It is extremely important. I am a millennial myself. Millennials are being very activated right now in the collective, the voices. More people are speaking, and it is a beautiful time to be alive. I will tell you that. I'm concerned, but I'm also extremely thankful to be in this age, to be alive in this age. So, Gen Alphas are mirroring Millennials, and I want to break that down. And this video is honestly, Gen Alphas, the oldest ones, are 15, 16 right now, maxed out and being born right now. This is the Gen Alpha generation. Let me get the exact dates. So Gen Alpha is 2013 through 2025 generation. I've got to get comfy per usual. Oh boy. All right, so we've got 2013 through 2025 is Generation Alpha. And I giggle because I'm like, how are they called Alpha? Like, where are the alphas? We do not have very many true alphas. But I see it now. And, you know, I've done so much research and I'm starting to peer into what scholars are speaking on with a Generation Alpha, and I'm concerned with, you know, business. It's all about the money. It's all about trying to kick the curve. We all have our opinions about the younger generations. Each generation always has an opinion about the generation after it. You know, the younger generation say, you know, they're like, oh, it's the generation before me, it's their fault, and so on and so forth. And the younger generations, they just don't get life, etc. I need to say my disclaimers before I walk myself in too far here. All right, so here is my opener and disclaimers before I get myself in trouble. So if you've been trying to understand why everything feels like it's losing authority at the same time, work, school, dating, government, and media, this video is not going to give you a hot take. It's going to give you a structure. Because what's happening isn't just culture, it's not just political, it's not just generational, it's nervous system level. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Systems don't collapse when they're opposed. They collapse when people stop organizing around them. That's the shift. And Gen Alpha, the kids being born into this era, are not arriving as rebels necessarily. They're arriving with a different baseline. They disengage from incoherence in a system that relies on coerced participation, reads disengagement as defiance. So if you've been watching the world thinking, why does it feel like consent is withdrawing everywhere? That's exactly what's happening. All right, so quick clarity. This is my disclaimers. This is not Gen Alpha will save us all. This is not boomers ruined everything. I'm getting ready to film that video. It's probably going to be 2 hours long. This is not men versus women. This is not men versus women. I do not subscribe to extremes. I am middle grounded in every sense of the meaning, politically, you name it. I am a very, very middle grounded and grounded human being. So this is a structural map. This is not ideology. And also, no generation is uniform. Some Gen Alpha kids will still experience poverty, abuse, war, neglect, and instability. Some will be raised in highly coercive environments. Some will be born into deep scarcity. So when I say Gen Alpha, I'm talking about tendencies, a pattern shaped by the field they are entering, not a prophecy for every child. Cool? All right, let's map the field. All right, so the field Gen Alpha was born into. Gen Alpha enters a world where centralized authority is visibly unstable. Institutions no longer maintain the illusion of competence. Adults openly talk about mental health, trauma, boundaries, and nervous systems. Technology is ambivalent, not impressive. Ambient, excuse me. Hierarchy is questioned by default. Contradictions are exposed immediately. This pattern, because prior generations were trained inside a system that could still pretend to be stable. Gen Alpha is forming inside a world that can't keep the mask on. Everything is coming out into the light. It is the age of Aquarius. It is the age where everything is coming forth. So we need to put language to it. We need an eagle's eye view of what is going on. That is why I am doing the generational videos. That is why I am writing so many books. So they don't experience collapse as a shocking event. They experience it as background weather. And the big difference is they are not emotionally attached to defending the old story. They're not here to prove the system is wrong. They're growing up in a reality where the system's incoherence is self-evident. So their instinct becomes simple. If it doesn't feel right, I'm out. Not angry, not dramatic, just non-participation. And this is much more destabilizing than protest. Gen Z versus Gen Alpha. Gen Z, let me get the exact dates here. I can never remember exact dates. So Gen Z is 1997 through 2012. Gen Alpha is 2013 through 2025. So Gen Z versus Gen Alpha. Gen Z largely absorbed the collapse. Internalized anxiety developed hyper-awareness. Learned through exposure, they became morally intense because they could see everything. Gen Alpha tends to arrive after the illusion broke. They're less invested in proving anything. They're less impressed by authority. They're more body forward and sensory driven, and they're less narrative bound. Gen Z often says, here's what's wrong and here's the argument. Gen Alpha says, okay, and then walks around it. Gen Z tends to confront the contradiction. Gen Alpha tends to exit the contradiction. That's why adults misread them as checked out. They're not checked out. They're selective about what gets access to their nervous system. The nervous system imprint. Here's the central thesis. Write it down. This isn't about values changing. It's about nervous systems refusing to subsidize incoherent systems. Prior generations were trained in obedience, productivity, endurance, identity through achievements, push through, earn rest, be good, be useful, and perform stability. Gen Alpha is forming inside a different adult culture. Not perfect, just different. Adults now talk about regulation, overstimulation, boundaries, emotional literacy, safety, consent, and repair. So even when families are messy, the language exists. And that language matters because it creates a possibility. The body can be a source of information, not just a thing to override. So Gen Alpha tends to do something that terrifies old systems. They disengage quickly from emotional dishonesty, incoherence, empty authority, over explanation, and guilt-based control. They don't argue with the system. They don't negotiate with the system. They just stop feeding it. And systems require to be fed. They require attention, labor, belief, emotional energy, time, and compliance. When you remove the feed, the structure still stands, but it becomes hollow, like a mall with no shoppers. Astrology layer. If you track astrology, here's the structural backbone. Pluto in Aquarius correlates with decentralization, network intelligence, peer authority, collapse of centralized legitimacy. Show me coherence, not credentials. That doesn't mean good times. It means the old authority model cannot hold. So Gen Alpha doesn't seek leaders the way prior generations did. They seek coherence. If something works, it's used. If it doesn't, it's abandoned. Authority becomes situational, not permanent and not hierarchical. Chiron wise. So we have Chiron in Aries right now, and that deals with the self, the identity, who I am. Gen Alpha is forming inside a culture that increasingly recognizes shame patterns as patterns. So you see more refusal to suffer, to belong, faster rejection of inherited shame scripts, less equating pain with worth. Not because they're better, but because the culture is exposing the old logic. They're not here to heal trauma by reliving it as identity. They're more likely to say, I'm not carrying that. Again, tendency, not destiny. I'm going to take another quick drink. Okay, so the indigenous parallel. The indigenous peoples were so deeply, deeply integrated, connected with themselves, the earth, each other. Now, here is a parallel that matters, but we're going to state it carefully. This is not about romanticizing indigenous cultures. It's not about copying them. It's not kids are going back to the old ways. It's this. Similar structural conditions often produce similar adaptations. Many indigenous knowledge systems emphasized learning through observation, skill through participation, peer-based transmission, environmental attunement, situational authority, presence-based attention, relational intelligence over abstraction. Gen Alpha in a digital environment shows echoes of that logic, believe it or not. Short attention for abstraction that feels pointless, long attention for presence that feels real, strong pattern recognition, fast detection of incongruence, preference for experimental learning over because I said so. This is not regression. It's a re-emergence of decentralized intelligence under conditions where centralized authority is no longer trusted. And that's why they don't need elders who dominate. They need elders who attune. I will be breaking down this generation in great depth. No worries. I just had to get this video out. Why Gen Alpha triggers adults. Adults raised under suppression, achievement pressure, moralized suffering, and endure and comply often interpret Gen Alpha as entitled, disrespectful, unfocused, ungrateful, and lazy. But what's actually happening is neurological. They refuse nervous system coercion. They don't internalize guilt as easily. They don't perform distress for approval. They sense inauthenticity immediately. They're immune not to pain, but to the old manipulation code. Because I said so. I refuse to ever say that to my children. I refuse. And that terrifies systems built on compliance, because compliance was the glue, and the glue is dissolving. So the mechanism, how the system hollows out. Let's be very precise about collapse. Happens without spectacle. Mechanism 1, parallel realities. They create alternate layers, micro schools and schooling and skill pods, peer learning networks, creator economy paths, local and digital hybrid communities. It's all about networking in the age of Aquarius in different ways. Identity built through practice, not credential. The system still exists. It's just no longer the only option, and not the best one. So just think about the online schooling. We have a lot more options now. Mechanism 2, nervous system non-compliance. Not protest, withdrawal. Systems collapse when people stop supplying attention, labor, and belief. Mechanism 3, decentralized intelligence. They don't look for permission, they look for functionality. Mechanism 4, time collapse. Old model, delayed reward, loyalty, and linear progression. New model, short feedback loops, relevance, and adaptability. Systems that require patience without meaning cannot hold. Mechanism 5, embodiment as filter. Truth is evaluated semantically. Does it feel coherent? Does it require self-betrayal? Does it regulate or dysregulate? Anything that requires chronic self-betrayal loses them. This is the quiet killer. So the parallel, millennial women, decentering, patriarchy. I know this is very triggering for a lot of people. Decentering men does not mean you hate men, does not mean you do not talk to men, does not mean that you throw them shade with disgusting looks, you don't treat them like crap. That is not what it actually means. I cannot stand, there's so many, the pendulum is swinging too far. It's a very confusing time. Millennials are hit the hardest with the entire breakdown of the masculine and feminine, especially in relationships. I'm going to do a whole video on that, and I highly suggest that you watch that video when it comes out because it is very deep. I'm not going to explain all of it here, but the millennial generation has been hit the hardest with the polarity extremes in the masculine and the feminine. So it is very difficult. I do not subscribe to hate. I am extremely empathetic and I feel for both men and women. It's a huge topic in itself, so I'm going to keep it brief here. So now, this is why it's been hitting people's nervous systems so hard. Because it's the same refusal pattern we've been watching adult women, especially millennials, do with the decentering men. Decentering men does not mean hating men. Structurally, it means men are no longer the reference point around which women organize their energy, safety, identity, or worth. That's it. You know, I will say millennials are exhausted. Men and women are exhausted. The economy, it's really hard, difficult raising children right now. It's more expensive. And people, I don't want to go down this whole rabbit hole, but how everything is more expensive. Everyone is burnt out, men and women. Women just do not have the strength that men do. I don't know why I have to say this, but women go through their cycles. It is exhausting. We cannot hold it all. We are expected to work. We're expected to do the emotional labor that men will not do within themselves. Men cause chaos and they're not emotionally regulated. Yes, that's weaponized to control and guilt and shame women into compliance, and it is just not manageable anymore. Women cannot go to work, cannot also lead in the household, doctor's appointments, food, shopping, the labor in the house, plus the children. It is just undoable. It is unmanageable. There is no other choice but for women to fall back. And that is exactly what's been going on for the last 5 years. 3 years, I'm pretty sure you've been able to see it at this point. It has hit the collective at full force. And it's unfortunate because women just don't have a choice. It's exhaustion. It's exhaustion. So it's sad, but so the acceleration over the last few years makes sense. So this is, I've been sitting here wondering, why has it amped up the last 3 years, especially? The pandemic made relational labor visible. The pandemic, everyone got to rest. Everyone got to rest and realize, oh, I'm exhausted. Oh, I'm doing a lot. It made relational labor visible, the emotional labor, the leading labor, the household, the job. It's a lot. It made it more visible. Everyone got to slow down for a while. Burnout hit threshold. Dating apps exposed entitlement patterns. Masculinity didn't evolve fast enough to match women's internal authority. We all know men are less emotionally and spiritually evolved, and the gap is now being identified and realized, and people are putting their foot down. It's just unmanageable. So women didn't necessarily revolt, they withdrew consent. They said semantically, this costs too much of my body, and they walked. And that's the same structural move Gen Alpha makes with institutions. So here's the clean line. Millennial women withdrew their bodies from the patriarchal extraction. Gen Alpha is withdrawing attention and identity from institutional extraction. Same move, different arena. So Gen Alpha doesn't need endless theory, trauma dumping, ideological wars, or coercive discipline masquerading as love. They need grounded elders, regulated nervous systems around them, embodied teaching, non-coercive guidance, reality-based structure that doesn't require self-betrayal. Think about the Chiron and Aries. Self-betrayal is not going to happen with that energy. Good luck. Good luck. So the biggest risk with adults trying to force Gen Alpha back into old scripts, using guilt as control, shame as motivation, authority as just because, and productivity as worth. They won't even fight with you. They will leave you. So, if you've been watching the world and thinking, why does everything feel like it's losing grip? This is why. Authority is no longer assumed. And when coherence isn't present, the new move is not rebellion, it's refusal. So here's the line that ends the confusion. Gen Alpha isn't rebellious, they're regulated, they're conscious. Each generation naturally is more conscious than the next. That's a rough one to swallow, to be honest. And a dysregulated system reads regulation as defiance. All right, so that is my video. And I am jumping the gun on this one because I do not have my millennial or Gen Z generational videos done yet. I'm getting there in stride. I am not going to tell you how many hours studying and organizing these books and videos, and I am trying to make leaps and bounds while I can. I understand that a lot of people do not have the time, the energy, they don't have the peace. They do not have the peace to see and understand deeply what's going on. And I am extremely fortunate enough to have the peace and the time and the slowdown. I am a farm kid. I'm introverted. I am with my family. This is what I do day in and day out when I'm not working. And I know that a lot of people do not have that time, so I feel extremely responsible, um, extremely responsible for putting language to what is going on, because it can be a very confusing time. There's just so much, I am not new to this type of work. I have been doing this researching for 20 years, and I just see there's a huge difference in the collective, and I am not new to this, so this is not me waking up yesterday and preaching. I've done a lot of integration, a lot of personal work on myself, and I've worked with a lot of people. And so this is just coming from a very humble place. And yes, so thank you so much for being here. I have many more videos to make this evening, and I am just a mother that is very concerned for my children, for their future, for everyone's future. The next 10 years, what is it going to look like? Everyone is lost. They have lost the veil has lifted, the fog has lifted, and the truth is just, you cannot, you know, you can't hide. No one can hide in this day. Government, people, just everyone that's been getting away with the darkest of dark things that they have been doing and getting away with. Everyone that has been getting away with absolute murder can no longer get away with it. And that is in government, that is in relationships, that is in education. Every single pillar of society is completely rattled. And I see it. I didn't think that it would be happening this quickly. I'm extremely excited, but I'm also very aware of what that can do to somebody's nervous system, their spirituality, their mind, their emotions. It can be very, very unnerving. And so, I think overall I am extremely happy, because there's been no other time like this. Honestly, there's just been no other time that we have the language for what is going on. We have the means to speak on what is going on. So yeah, anyways, I'm just I just care deeply as a mother, as a deeply Native American bloodline human being, very spiritual. It's just so deep in me. I was raised Catholic. My family, they are absolutely amazing people. We are farmers. I care deeply about the land, Mother Earth. Embodiment, I am just trying to bring back the indigenous teachings, the grounding, Mother Earth, nervous system work, polarity work, psychological work, astrological work, the deepest, darkest depths of your soul. I'm okay with facing that. I have faced a lot myself. So hang in there. I'm trying to bring you some language. Feel free to comment. Please like and subscribe. And certainly feel free to comment your thoughts and feelings. I will certainly this is my container here. This is my channel. I certainly will be reading all the comments. Do not be hateful. Please feel free to add, but just, let's be mature. Let's be mature. It's not men versus women. It's not this generation versus that generation. It's not this culture versus that culture. It's not the left versus the right. We are on the same boat, and that boat is called Mother Earth, and she is hurting. So let's wise up. I will see you on the other side.